Just a couple of years apart. Just a couple of years apart.
All right, everyone. It looks like it's about that time. It's 12 o'clock. We're going to get started with our first SU Forum. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our annual SU Election Forums. My name is John Stephen, current undergrad student and host at CJSW 90.9, and I will be your host and facilitator for today. At this forum, we will meet our two candidates running to be SU VP External for the 2024-2025 academic year. Voting will take place from March 4th to March 6th on your Student Center. Over the next course of the hour, I will be asking our candidates questions about who they are, what they stand for, and what they know about the position so far. Audience members who have questions may speak to our candidates after the forum is over from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. at the tables towards the back. Today, I also have a lovely assistant with me who will be up here in the front who's going to help us keep time. Each question asked will have a time limit. Candidates, please keep your eyes open for the green and red paddle. The green paddle means there's only 30 seconds left in the question, and the red side means stop. Candidates are not permitted to speak over each other, and we'll move on once the time is over. Candidates, are we ready to go? Fantastic. All right, so we have flipped a coin in advance, and we have determined that Sheroog will start us off with introductions. Please go ahead and tell us who you are and what your campaign is about.
Hello, my name is Sheroog. I am a fourth-year political science and communication student, and I'm running for VP External because I care. I think at the very least, we always have candidates who are kind of running for these positions to either pad their resumes or to make themselves look good. But I'm running for this position because I genuinely care so much about students. Every single point on my platform was something that either I have been affected by or something that people close to me have been affected by, or even something that I've been talking to students and they have said that this is something that affects them. I care so much about making sure that students are able to live the better lives and living lives with dignity, or living better lives and being treated with the dignity that they deserve. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Sheroog, for that introduction. Moving on to our second candidate, we'll have Julia talk about herself.
Hi, I'm Julia Law, and I'm running to be your Vice President External. I currently sit as the School of Architecture, Planning, and Landscape faculty representative, but more specifically, the first ever School of Architecture, Planning, and Landscape faculty rep. In my year, I've done a few things, including co-founding the City Innovation Students Association, connecting Bachelor of Design and City Innovation students with issues across campus, such as tuition and fees consultations, and so on. As your next Vice President External, I want to do a few things. I want to make sure that students have economic stability across campus and out of campus so they can afford to think about other issues on campus, such as their education. Specifically, I want to fight for things like the Summer Temporary Employment Program, Canadian student grants, as well as paid practicums. Beyond this, I want students to be aware of the issues that matter most to them, ensuring that I create a campaign that allows students to learn about the advocacy across campus. This campaign will be very robust, including class visits, class talks, club visits, and so on, so that students know what is going on to them. Students deserve to know what is happening across campus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia. All right, we're going to move right into our questions. We have the first round of questionings. This will be position-based questions. Each candidate will get 1 minute to answer. For the first question, over the past 5 years, students have had to face multiple challenges regarding the affordability of post-secondary education. Excluding tuition, what do you anticipate the biggest affordability challenge for students will be this next year, and why are you the best candidate to address this issue? For the first question, we'll give it to Sheroog.
I think that the biggest issue that students are going to be facing will probably have to be the job market, to be quite honest with you. I think that in the past, it may have been answers such as housing or food insecurity, but to be quite honest with you, the city and the university have made tremendous strides in both of these issues, to the point where as much as they are still issues, none of that really matters if you don't really have enough money in your pocket to be able to afford everything that is a necessity for your life. I think that, especially in relating to the job market, you see a lot of students who are exiting university that do not have, not just exiting, but students who are in university who do not have the experience that they have to be able to work in the field long term, which is frankly unfair. And this is why I'm prioritizing it as probably the biggest issue for students.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Sheroog. All right. And Julia? You have the floor for the same question.
I think one of the issues that is most important to students right now is the difference in between the living wage as well as the minimum wage. Currently, Alberta sits as the second lowest minimum wage across the country. We haven't raised our minimum wage from the 15 that it's currently at since 2018. Back then, we had the highest minimum wage, and now we are tied with Saskatchewan for the lowest. It is currently 63% higher, the living wage, than the minimum wage. And I think it is important that we advocate to raise this minimum wage so that students who are finding and have jobs are able to have safe jobs and safe working environments, and as well as be able to balance a proper work schedule without having to take on multiple jobs in order to compensate for things such as their tuition, their housing, their food, and so on. I think it's important that we advocate to the provincial government to raise this.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Julia. Moving on, we'll go to our second question. With your knowledge of what the provincial government is responsible for when it comes to student issues, do you think that the issue you identified in question 1 is the issue that has the highest potential for results? If not, what do you think is the achievable campaign involving the province? And for this one, we'll start with Julia.
I think since the minimum wage affects people across the province, whether it be students, whether it be normal citizens, or so on, it is definitely an issue that the provincial government can choose to tackle. I believe that since we are entering and already are in a very economically unstable time for citizens across Alberta, that the province should be willing and with proper advocacy will be willing to raise that minimum wage. Overall, I think it is a good start for encouraging the province to better support the people across the province, whether it be students or whether it be your average everyday person.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Julia. And Sheroog for the same question.
I think that absolutely the job market is something that falls within the wheelhouse of the provincial government. The provincial government has made it a priority, especially this government has said that one of their biggest priorities is making sure that people are able to work in the sectors that need work to be fulfilled. Already, this is something that they have made a priority, so I don't understand why this doesn't extend to students even further than just in like those highly skilled labor. I think something even as simple as like bringing back the STEP program, the summer temporary employment program, is something that is well within the powers of the government. And yes.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. Moving on, we're going to go to question number 3. The Students' Union advocates municipally with the Calgary Student Alliance, or CSA, and federally with the Canadian Alliance of Student Associations, or CASA. The Students' Union, the CSA, and the CASA are nonpartisan organizations. Have you been involved in partisan politics before? And if so, how will you ensure that you remain nonpartisan over the next year in your advocacy work? We'll start this question off with Sheroog.
I have not been involved in any partisan politics. Aside from the fact that I am a citizen, so I do my due diligence and I vote every single year. I'm also a poly student, so I know the importance of voting every single year. I've never been directly involved with any party or any candidate to any capacity. So I don't think that it'll be too much of an issue for me to remain nonpartisan because the priority will always be students, not whatever my personal leanings are.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sheroog. And Julia, you have the same question.
I am in the same boat. I have not been involved in any partisan organizations. I have been a part of the SU. That was my first so said political organization involvement. I do not doubt I will be able to remain partisan for students, being able to advocate for what they believe in and talking to all levels of government, all different parties to ensure that students get the advocacy, the representation that they deserve.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Moving on, we'll go to question number 4. Concerns about student mental health are at an all-time high. Beyond blanket funding initiatives like the Wellness Centre, what do you think that any level of government or the university could be doing to support the mental wellness of students? And Julia, we'll start you off with this question.
I think that all levels of government need to meet students where they're at and talk to students about the issues that matter to them across campus for these mental health initiatives. I think that we need to have the opinions of the people who are using these services to understand where we can grow them, and understand where we can cut back if things aren't specifically helping. It is important to be talking to the members of the community who are utilizing these services rather than creating them for them without them. If we are able to talk to students who are using these services, interested in using these services, we can create a more robust program that supports them in the ways that they need.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Julia. And Sheroog, same question.
I believe very strongly that the best way to take care of your mental health is to make sure that every other part of your life is being taken care of. Because your mental health will go down the drain if you do not have access to safe and affordable housing. Your mental health will go down the drain if you do not have food on the table. Your mental health will go down the drain if you are worried about how much your next paycheck is going to go towards rent. Um, in my opinion, the best way to make sure that students are actually being able to be taken care of is making sure that all of their other basic needs are met. Um, and that will always be kind of, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If your basic needs are not met, obviously you will not be able to worry about your academics or worry about trying to get into like this next program. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, you guys. Moving on, question number 5. International students have been a hot topic in the media recently across Canada, and this issue is expected to continue coming up during federal lobbying meetings. What would you say is the main issue? My apologies. What would you say the main issue is with international students, and what would your solutions entail? We'll start with Sheroog for this question.
Do you mean issues facing international students, or like in what regard? Open to interpretation. I think international students are kind of being scapegoated right now. They're being treated as if they are the villains in this story, when clearly there's a myriad of other factors that have absolutely nothing to do with individual students, in issues relating to like affordability and issues relating to tuition increases. I think in terms of the issue of international students, I don't believe that exists whatsoever. International students are not an issue. They are students just as much as anybody else. If you mean an issue that is facing international students, I think the fact that they are kind of being used to subsidize cut costs towards post-secondary is probably their biggest issue. And this is why international students need to be advocated for on the federal level, because you're seeing the federal government take measures to address an issue that simply does not apply in Alberta, and now international students have to pay the cost for it. So I believe that federally, one of the biggest issues.
My apologies, Sheroog. We have to cut you off. Yes, thank you very much for your response. We'll give Julia the same question.
I think one of the largest issues that international students face is a sense of belonging on and off campus. Of course, the cap on international students is one of the hardest things that international students will come to face in the next coming years. A university being unwilling to take them due to their international student cap or so on is quite frankly very discomforting to the average student. But genuinely, all the people who are on campus as international students deserve to feel like they belong. They deserve to feel like they are citizens of Calgary, citizens of Canada, and so on, whether or not they have their PR, or if they're currently just here for studies. I think we should be able to tackle this sense of belonging and ensure that campus culture welcomes them in rather than shuts them out. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Julia. Moving on, question number 6. This position often needs to meet with members of government who have a busy schedule. What tactics do you think the SU should employ for a member of government who continually refuses to meet with the SU as their constituent? Julia, you have the first response.
I think it's important to let those politicians know about the importance of meeting with their constituents, and understanding that in some cases there will just never be a time that they are willing to make for you, and instead meet them at where they're at, whether it be important events, gatherings, so on and so forth, and doing advocacy there at their level, and understanding that, yeah, they're not always going to come to the SU office. They're not always going to come to campus. They want you to sometimes come to them. So going to them is what counts in that matter, and you can help start conversation and then start regular meetings from there.
Great, thank you very much. Sheroog, the same question.
I think the thing about lobbying is that you're not just lobbying with one person, you're lobbying with an entire team of people that help to make sure that this ministry runs. So if I have somebody who is just simply refusing to meet with me, then there is definitely somebody who is in the wheelhouse who is definitely willing to meet with me, whether it be some kind of other civil servants, whether it be people that are working on the ministry's team or the minister's team, whether it be people even like shadow ministers who are still in government. I think finding these kind of like roundabout, so to say, ways to make sure that your agenda remains on their radar, to make sure that you aren't being forgotten just because you're not directly meeting with them. That would kind of be my biggest tactic, is meeting with people who may not be the direct point of contact, but who definitely have a sway or who are more regularly meeting with my point of contact.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Sheroog. Moving on, question number 7. Think about the SU's main advocacy issues in the past 2 years. Tell us about the one that interested you the most and one where you would have done things differently. Sheroog, why don't you start us off?
In the last 2 years, I think the SU's one of the issues that the SU was focusing a lot on was, I'll say in tandem, tuition increases and budget cuts. I think that the approach for tuition increases, where it was focused more on grassroots mobilization and you're focusing on trying to get students to be as involved in the issue as possible through student strikes, fully transparent. I did participate in the student strikes. I organized one of the student strikes. I think that was one of the most effective things that they did. In terms of for budget cuts, something that I think that they could have done a little bit differently is, I do think, while I agree with the 2019 levels of funding being the standard, I think that that is kind of something that can be worked on a little bit more. I think if you're going to talk about increasing funding, you need to increase funding no matter how you're getting that funding. So I personally have been advocating for increasing funding to be tied to inflation, because at the end of the day, we're getting the same amount of money when clearly the affordability crisis and clearly the state of affairs is
Sorry,
not.
I got to cut you off, Sheroog. Thank you very much. Moving on, this is our very last question for round number 1. This job routinely involves public speaking as well as being interviewed by the media.
Is Julia not going to answer that question?
My apologies, Julia.
Okay.
Julia, would you like me to reread the question? I'm sorry, I kind of skipped over
No,
you.
I got it. It's up here. Thank you. As though I have not been a student for more than 2 years yet, my connection with a bunch of the issues that the SU has advocated for can sometimes be a little bit distant. However, in the last year, I do have to note that the SU has done some advocacy towards restoring budget funding from 2019. And I think one thing I would be doing differently is meeting students at where they're at earlier on rather than later on, in order to get the opinions of students, get the student testimonies, to use them to talk to the government and say, your budget cuts are doing this to students. This is what matters, because the government is unwilling to talk to students. So if I'm going to talk to students, I'd rather do it ASAP rather than later.
Great. Thank you very much, Julia. It's a delayed response on my bad. My apologies. Finally, we will now move on to the final question for round number 1. This job routinely involves public speaking as well as being interviewed by the media. How do you personally like to psych yourself up before speaking engagements like this? And Julia, we will start with you this time.
Oh, this is like a personal question. I'm a caffeine drinker. I do have to say, I do like myself a good cup of matcha or a nice latte right before anything, whether it be public speaking, whether it be an important meeting. And besides that, just reviewing my notes, understanding what I need to talk about, bringing up the key points. I've been involved in public speaking from a very, very young age, so I'm used to all of it. Beyond that, that's pretty much all, just a nice, good cup of coffee.
Thank you very much. Sheroog, how do you like to psych yourself up?
I'm a complete extrovert. I like to talk to people. I like public speaking, believe it or not. And I think it kind of gets me like a little bit excited no matter what. It doesn't matter which context I'm talking to people. I just like to do it. One thing that I always do though is I absolutely love 2010s electropop. So I will always put in my headphones and listen to like minimum one Lady Gaga song, and then I'm like set to go for the day.
Incredible. Thank you very much, guys. That is the end of our round number 1. We're going to move on to round number 2. I would like to thank the candidates for their very eloquent and well-worded speeches, but for round number 2, we're going to give their voices a break. Round number 2 is going to be our speed round. Both candidates in front of them have whiteboards. They will be giving 30 seconds per question to write down the correct response. There are a few questions in here. I don't know the exact number, but the candidates will write down their answer, and after 30 seconds, they will hold them up. These questions do have an objective answer. So we're going to start off with question number 1, 30 seconds per question. What municipal ward is the University of Calgary located in, and who is the councillor for that ward? Both candidates ready? All right, reveal your answers. All right, so yes, Sheroog does get the full marks. It is Ward 7 and Terry Wong. Julia, you did get Ward 7 correct. We'll move on to question number 2. Give him the chance to erase. Question number 2. Who is the Minister of Advanced Education? All right, that's time. Can you guys hold up your whiteboards? Yes, Sheroog is correct. It is Rajan Sawhney, aka the MLA for Calgary Northwest. All right, moving on to question number 3. What are 2 of the 4 of the university committees the VPX sits on? You just have to list 2 out of the 4, any 2.
University?
The university committees that the VP External sits on, yes. All right, candidates ready? All right, reveal your boards. So yes, it looks like they both nailed it. The 4 possibilities are Tuitions and Fees Consultant Committee, Active Living, Senate, and SES. All right, question number 4. Other than the Minister of Advanced Education and the Premier, can you name one provincial government elected official the SU is or should be working closely with to advance student advocacy? All right, candidates, are you ready? All right, flip them around. All right, so the names that we have listed here and the titles: Nate Horner, Minister of Finance and President of Treasury Board; Nathan Neudorf, Minister of Affordability and Utilities; Muhammad Yassin, Minister of Immigration and Multiculturalism; Rick McIver, Minister of Municipal Affairs; Nate Glubish, Minister of Technology and Innovation; and any critics of opposition, including David Egan, Luann Metz, Nathan Ip, and Court Ellingson. So we'll move on to question number 5.
I digress.
So question number 5, there's a few less choices here. What elections are Calgarians expected to vote in this year besides the SU general election? All right, our time is up. Candidates, flip your boards. So yes, the two answers we have here are municipal and federal. I don't know enough personally to know if we can verify a potential by-election, but I'm just a moderator. Moving on, question number 6. Oh, sorry, we'll give Julia a second. Question number 6. The Students' Union has been an advocate for Alberta re-implementing the STEP program. What does STEP stand for? All right, looks like both candidates are done. If you guys are ready, flip your boards. Yes, that is exactly correct. It is the Summer Temporary Employment Program. All right, moving on, question number 7. What percentage is the cap on annual domestic tuition increases? All right, it looks like, are both candidates ready? All right. So yes, the answer was 2%, a total of 2% across all programs. All right, and our second to last question. How many members of parliament or MPs represent Calgary? All right. Are both candidates ready? All right, flip them around. Yes, the correct answer is there are 10 MPs that represent Calgary. And then this will be our final question for our speed round. The government of Alberta has tasked a panel to review funding within post-secondary in Alberta. And that panel is being led by a professor here at the University of Calgary. Which professor is this? Nice. Time is up. Candidates, can you flip your boards around? So this one was a little bit of a stumper. This is Jack Mintz. I'm not sure if we have a fact check on which faculty Jack Mintz would be with. Poli-sci? All right. Well, thank you very much. That is the end of round 2. We're going to move back in to some in-depth questions. So each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to these questions. The first 2 questions will be given to both candidates, and after that, the final 4 will be asked individually. So, question number 1. Student housing continues to be a major concern for students, even though the City of Calgary allocated $25 million to build student housing downtown last year. While we wait for those projects to come to fruition, what do you think the SU should be doing about this issue in the meantime? And Julia, we'll start you off. You have 2 minutes.
I think we should be pushing advocacy overall. I think as we wait for these projects to come up from the 25 million, we need to be pushing for more student housing to come up in University District, working alongside not-for-profits to push for this. I think on top of this, we need to get students involved in the planning initiatives across the city. When communities are undergoing planning, whether it be rezoning, reconfiguration, or so on, they have things that are called local area planning meetings. These meetings happen across the city and invite citizens of the community, whether it be students, whether it be homeowners, etc., to talk about the issues that matter to them in their community. I think it is important to mobilize students to get involved in this because widely across the city, we do not have student representation. We will see that in areas around the city, around the campus, whether it be Brentwood, Varsity, or so on, we have a lot of student representation, but in communities such as Silverado, we lack this student representation despite having local area planning meetings. I think it is important to advocate to students that it is important to get involved in these things, and then from there mobilize students to talk about housing in those areas, whether it be low cost, below market price housing, or it be mixed use complexes or so on, and ensuring that there is proper and ample transit access because yes, we can build low income housing across the city, whether it be in communities like Bridlewood, Silverado, Chaparral, et cetera, in the deep Southwest, but we need to make sure that students are able to reach campus and make sure that there is sufficient transit access to these areas so students can properly utilize these pre-existing communities.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Julia. Sheroog will pose you the same question.
First of all, I disagree with the premise of while we wait, because I think if I'm VP External, I'm definitely going to keep on pushing to make sure that 25 million is being allocated so that students can actually access it. In the meantime, however, I think that taking care of students that are renting is going to be the biggest priority. For example, implementing landlord licensing will be one of the biggest priorities that I will be lobbying for because students need to be taken care of while they are living in the situations that they are living within. Because at the end of the day, a landlord is running a business. You are taking money from somebody, and if you are unable to make sure that that student is living in high quality and safe housing, then that is something that definitely needs to be addressed as soon as possible. I think that's going to be one of the biggest priorities. Secondary, I think also if you're a student and you're a renter, especially if you're an international student, but also for domestic, like I'm from here, and a lot of people don't know their rights as renters. They don't know what landlords are and aren't allowed to do. They don't know how landlords are allowed to. Landlords like to kind of just put their grubby little hands on everything. So internally on the campus, I would like to set up a campaign to make sure that students are aware of their rights as renters, as well as make sure that students are aware of the services that can help them advocate for their rights. Because yes, you can know what landlords are and aren't allowed to do, but at the same time, it's scary to have to go up against your landlord, especially if this is like if you're the only one in the city and you're kind of taking care of yourself. Sorry, excuse me. So it would have to be bifold of both making sure that students are aware of their rights and then also making sure that students know which services that they can access to make sure their rights are being fought for, like student legal services. And then on the broader municipal thing is the implementation of landlord licensing, which you can work with local nonprofits who are already working towards implementing that.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sheroog. Question number 2. The biggest issue for students is the constant... Oh, my apologies. The biggest issue for students is the constant rise in tuition, placing a bigger burden on affordability each year. There are many stakeholders involved in this issue, including the Tuition and Fees Committee, the University Admin and Board, the Students' Legislative Council, and the provincial government. How do you anticipate you will work with your fellow executives to approach all of these groups while also effectively communicating your actions to the student body? And Sheroog, we'll start you off. You have 2 minutes.
The biggest thing is that as an executive, you need to make sure that you're presenting a united front. You need to make sure that every executive is on the exact same page about who we need to talk to, what issues we're bringing up, especially if I'm elected VP External, I will definitely be holding those advocacy weeks where you need to make sure that your entire team is on the same page, that they know exactly what kind of information you need to be putting out there and who you need to talk to get the best yield out of these things. Working with the executive, if you mean on like that professional level, I think at the end of the day, you're all here because you were elected. You're all here because you had a common passion about caring for students and making sure that students are taken care of, I hope. So it will not be that difficult to make sure that we are all on the same page about what we are asking out of these governments and the university as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sheroog. Julia, the same question.
I think one thing that's important to note before tackling how exactly to fight tuition and fees raises is the concept that a lot of students, as it is, don't believe that tuition advocacy goes anywhere. They don't realize that the SU's advocacy, whether it be on the SLC's front, the provincial government's front, or even directly to university administration, goes anywhere. And I think establishing, like I mentioned in my platform, a communication to students about what advocacy is going on for them will be very important so that these, for example, the SLC tuition and fees consultation meetings can be well supported by students across campus so that we can have more student participation in these matters. On top of this, I think it is important to attend all tuition and fees consultation meetings, encouraging my SLC members to attend and having them educated on the matters of the importance of tuition and fees raises and what in the last years has gone down because of these increases. And I think overall, making sure that tuition and fee increases and the impact of them is communicated to university administration across the year rather than just in those short little months through September to December, where it is the main topic of conversation in SLC in meetings. I think that we should be telling university administration earlier on, whether it be in May, June, July, that these tuition increases shouldn't continue to happen and we should be fighting against them very, very early on.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Julia. So for the final 4 questions for this round, they will be split evenly and they will be posed individually to each candidate. So starting off, we have a question for Sheroog. You mentioned in your platform that you co-wrote a report criticizing the proposed curriculum changes and directly lobbied the Minister of Education. If students were curious about it, where could they find it? Who did you write it with? And what was the impact of your lobbying efforts?
I co-wrote this report in 2021, so this was quite a while ago when the curriculum was first put out. This report was presented directly to the Minister of Education. It was through a program called the Minister's Youth Council, where they collected a total of 30 youth across the province and gave them the opportunity to directly work with the minister on issues that impacted students the most. This report, it was not put out publicly because at the time we had no idea how to put something out publicly. It was written in collaboration with, again, those 30 other students who were anywhere from 15 to 18 years old. What was the second half of that?
Oh, yes. What was the impact of your lobbying efforts?
The impact of that lobbying effort was that the Minister of Education actually listened to us, and she ended up holding a consultation meeting with the entire collective where we were able to, because in the report we broke down piece by piece every single part of the curriculum that we thought was inadequate. So we ended up having a dedicated consultation meeting where we broke up into groups and we expanded on everything that we were talking about and why we believe that it didn't work effectively. The outcome of that as well in the long term was that they ended up completely redoing parts of the curriculum, not the whole thing, because at the end of the day, this government is still going to do what this government does. But also they ended up creating a parents' youth council or a parents' council for the minister, where they used that as a framework so that they could talk to parents directly about their proposed curriculum changes, as well as creating a whole new, or not a whole new, but they did create a new kind of board with more community stakeholders to inform them on the curriculum and to give feedback on it. So yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sheroog. Moving on, we'll go to Julia. You talk in your platform about developing programs to assist in bettering campus culture. Can you elaborate what you believe to be the problems with campus culture and what can be addressed through your portfolio as the VP external to combat it?
I think it's important to note that in the last couple months and in the last couple years, we have noticed from student groups across campus noticing issues of discrimination, whether it be against majorities, minorities, etc. And I think it's important to work for non-for-profit representational groups that are much larger than the campus itself to understand where these issues lie and understand how we can tackle them head on. So using the VP external role, I will communicate with these non-for-profit groups, specifically ones that are at a higher level, whether it be a federal representation or so on, and understanding and talking to students about the issues that they face on campus due to discrimination, due to a lack of campus culture, due to maybe a poor campus culture, and trying to work together with a non for profit to use the results from this to establish programs, whether it be workshops, meetings, or focus groups, or so on, to help bring back a positive campus culture that we can all enjoy rather than claiming that UofC is a commuter campus and just a home of discrimination and all around unsettling feelings. Yeah.
Very fair. Thank you very much, Julia. Excellent answer. Moving on, we'll go back to Sheroog. All of the points you make under the federal section of your platform continue the good work already being pursued by our federal partner group, CASA. Can you tell us about an area of federal advocacy that the SU could either pursue on its own or recommend to CASA that is not already being done?
I think that an area that the SU could probably go towards, definitely in terms of international student advocacy. Specifically, I will point out, I genuinely wholeheartedly think that the cap on international student enrollment is absolutely ridiculous, especially on this side of the country. It is a band-aid on a problem that really only applies to the eastern half of this country. So yes, I will be I will work with CASA to kind of maybe work with the government to create as much as I don't think that it should be capped at all, I think maybe working with the government to create a solution to the international student problem, which I don't believe exists, or even like opening up the doors for Alberta to make sure that international students are able to get the education that they deserve if they decide to come to Canada, because that cap is definitely ruining Canada's tuition or not tuition, ruining Canada's reputation in terms of how it's perceived for international students to be able to come to study abroad. So yeah, I think maybe that.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And for our final question for the round, we'll direct it to Julia. You talk about bringing the minimum wage in line with Calgary's living wage, and also about the return of the STEP program. Now, STEP was a wage subsidy program, which will be less attractive to the province if the minimum wage goes up. How do you intend to balance both platform points with each other, and would you prioritize one over the other?
I think overall, I would probably prioritize the summer temporary employment program first. However, still continuing to put a push on the raise of the minimum wage. Of course, it is important to understand that we cannot expect the provincial government to just raise the minimum wage by pretty much $10 overnight. It's not going to happen. Pushing for whether it be a $2 raise, a $3 raise, bringing it just a little bit closer to that living wage, and understanding that there is other ways to bring that living wage down to be closer to the minimum wage, including pursuing more economic stability across the board. However, I do understand that the STEP program is a wage subsidy, but I think it might start to look a little bit more enticing towards the provincial government as pushes for supporting Canadian businesses begin to grow. As we see the tariffs going in place and the tariffs being threatened, we see a vast majority of governments, whether it be Albertan government or Canadian government, pushing to support the businesses that are Canadian owned, Canadian operated. And if the provincial government is aware that this wage subsidy program that helps employ students is also helping the local businesses that they so love and cherish, I think it'll start to become a little bit more attractive to them. So I think that's why I will probably push for that first and foremost, and then move on towards working towards at least bridging the gap in between the current living and minimum wage.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Julia. Thank you to both our candidates for that amazing round. We'll move on to our very last round for this session. This is the proper debate section of the forum. So we'll start off. Each candidate will have 1 minute. There'll be a 1-minute critique of their opponent's platform, as well as a 1-minute rebuttal by the critique-ee, I guess. We'll start off with Julia. Julia, can you pick one of your opponent's platforms and provide a constructive critique? You have 1 minute.
In your platform, you mentioned trying to work alongside the municipal government to increase transit access and transit presence across campus. I think it is important to understand where we need to encourage students and encourage the city to get involved with this, and understanding that the city isn't going to be willing to increase transit access unless they have a proper reason, unless they have proper feedback. The city is currently focused on increasing transit access in other communities that already don't have transit access. We see things like the Red Line extension going up, as well as the Max Purple extension. Those are often the city's priorities. I think it is a wonderful idea to get more transit across campus. I think it would just be important to note how and why we would be advocating for this.
All right, thank you very much. And Sheroog, you have 1 minute to rebut.
I believe that the university is a constituency in itself. And yes, the city is working on increasing transit access for select areas, but at the same time, if students on campus are unable to get to where they need to go, then that is something that that the city needs to worry about. I will point out that in 2023, we saw that or 2024, sorry, we saw that the number of times that it was clicked to say that a bus was full increased by nearly 250 times more than the year before that, which means that the issues that are surrounding transit are not just one specific area, they're not just one specific line. It's an issue with the transit system that needs to be addressed in its entirety. And I think at the very least, if you are going to treat the university as, because it is effectively one of its own constituencies, you need to make sure that students are able to get here and to get to where they need to go effectively, because it's not just students that live within the Northwest that are going to the university. It's if you're not able to access this area from any part of the city.
My apologies, Sheroog. We got to cut you off. That's the 1 minute cap. But you will have a chance to talk again because Sheroog, now it is your turn. May you pick one of Julia's platform points and provide a constructive critique. You have 1 minute.
On your platform, Julia, you mention that you want to mobilize students to be more active in municipal affairs, such as engaging in these community area planning initiatives. However, we did see that the Shaganappi local area plan initiative that was happening on campus ended up not doing very much for students and ended up not being very influential in the city. So I'm curious how you are planning on kind of skirting around that when this is something that has been tried on campus and has been shown to not be as effective.
All right, thank you very much. Julia, you have 1 minute to review it.
I think it's important to note that local area planning initiatives don't just happen on campus. They don't just happen with the city attending campus. It doesn't just occur in the city tabling here in Mac Hall. It also comes in the form of feedback forms online. It also comes in the form of actual local area planning meetings that are hosted in communities across the city. In evening times and throughout the year. It also comes in the form of sending out letters to your MPs, to your MLAs, to your so on and so forth. So I think it is more or less not about getting students on campus to get involved, but getting students on and off campus to get involved.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That is the end of our round 4 debate section. May we get a time check? How close are we to 1 o'clock? 12 minutes? All right. So we do have time for one extra question. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to respond. Your time at the U of C has hopefully taught you a lot of lessons, and the SU strives to be a place of continual learning. What lessons that you've learned about yourself at U of C are you hoping to bring to the SU, and what are you hoping to learn from the SU should you be elected? Julia, we'll start with you.
As someone who is in a brand new program here on campus, I've learned how to traverse challenges. I am, as I mentioned at the start of the forum, but for those who are just in, I am in the Bachelor of Design City Innovation program, and I am in the inaugural class. And quite frankly, I've been subject to a lot of guinea pig behavior during the time and a lot of trial and error with different profs, with different instructors, with different leadership representative and so on. I think that has taught me to be very resilient. And I think I'll take that into the SU and understand that, yes, I might have some pushback from students. I might have some pushback from people within the government, but I need to stay resilient, and I need to stay resilient in order to represent students wholeheartedly.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Sheroog, you have the same question.
I've been on this campus for the last 4 years, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that you will not always succeed in exactly what you put your mind to. There have been tremendous successes over the last 4 years of my degree, like planning the student strike, like planning those rallies, like being involved on campus. But at the same time, it would be a complete lie to say that every single time I put my mind to something, it ended up 100% the way that I planned it to. And I think that kind of attitude of, forgive me for being crass, but like kind of learning how to fail and learning how to skirt around those failures and to take them not just as hits to your ego, but as opportunities for growth and opportunities for improvement is something that I can definitely bring into the SU. I'm not one of those people where if I get knocked down that I'm just going to give up. Believe me. I'm one of those people where if I get knocked down, then I'm just going to find an alternate route to the top. So I think that's an attitude and kind of belief that we can bring to the Students' Union.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sheroog. So, each candidate, we've reached the end. Both of you guys will get 1 minute to both make your final pitches. Tell us why the student body should vote for you. And based off the coin flip at the start, we'll have Sheroog go first.
I think that you should vote for me because I'm not in it for the notoriety. I'm not in it because I want to look good. I'm not in it to satiate some kind of ego. I'm in it because I truly care about students and I truly care about making sure that we live better lives. Forgive me for being redundant, but I feel like this is something that I need to reiterate because it seems like every single year you see the exact same thing of people who say that they care and then they don't do anything about it. And if you really want proof of somebody who's willing to do something about it, I'm coming out of nowhere. I'm a little bit of a wild card. I'm coming in here because I want to see students living better lives. And I am honestly so sick and tired of waiting for somebody else to do it for me or waiting for somebody else to figure it out for me. I want to take these matters into my own hands. I've done it before. I'll do it again. And by the end of my term, you can guarantee that you'll be in a better place than where we left off.
Thank you very much, Sheroog. And finally, Julia, you have 1 minute for your final pitch.
As the first ever School of Architecture, Planning and Landscape faculty representative, and a very successful one at that, I encourage you to vote for me, Julia Law, for Vice President External to ensure that you have proper representation. I have the knowledge of how to get involved in city affairs. I know about what is happening to you. I am one of you. I've faced economic instability. I've faced issues with jobs. I know what you are going through. I want to make sure that you have a better and enjoyable experience on and off campus. So I am encouraging you to vote Julia Law for Vice President External. And as my campaign catchphrase goes, Julia Law, locked in for students.
Perfect. Thank you very much, you guys. I want to thank both of our candidates, Sheroog and Julia. Yes, give them a round of applause. So yes, I want to thank as well all of you guys for coming out to support, making your voice heard in the election. I want to remind everyone to vote on March 4th to 6th online on your Student Centre. One of these students will be representing you next year, so please ensure you are using your voice to choose who those people are. If you have questions about your candidates, they will be at the back tables over there somewhere in that area after this is done, or you can also reach out to them. Candidate platforms and information are available on the SU website, and we'll be back here, same location, same time for the VP Internal Forum tomorrow. Thank you very much, and have a good afternoon. Good job, guys.
Thank you.